Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about for loops. We just got done talking about while loops. The difference between the two is that while loops are used when you don't know how many times you want the loop to run. For loops are used when you know exactly how many times you want it to run. So it runs for a certain amount of times. So in the future, when you're trying to decide which one you should use, keep that in mind. While loops usually controlled by nothing but a condition that maybe you don't know. Is going to increase your, what's going to happen to that condition. And then a for loop is usually run for, you know exactly how many times you want it to go. If you want to go 10 times, 5 times, whatever. They're both pre-test loops, which means that they both check a condition before running. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here so we can see these. Here's the basic syntax. And I know this looks kind of crazy at first, but we'll get used to doing this, and it kind of keeps the same structure most of the time. The first part of it is called the initialization. So we're going to put for, we're going to have an initialization of a variable. That variable is what's going to control our loop. And so here we have I. Typically we use I here. You can use whatever variable that you want though, but in examples and such, you're always usually going to see I or J or something like that. I think that I stands for index, and we'll see why that is later on. So here we got I is equal to 0, which means I is going to start at 0. Just know that I can start wherever you want it to start. Then we've got a test. The test is the condition. It's going to see, is I less than 5? And if it is, it'll run whatever's inside here. The next thing we have is the update or the increment. This is how much I is going to increase every time the loop runs. This can change. It can decrease. You can subtract. You can multiply. You can divide. You can do whatever you want to do with I. You can even do things to I from within the loop, and I will change at different rates. So, but let's get into that later. Let's just look at how this first loop is going to play out. So the first thing we got is I is going to start at 0. So the first thing that's going to happen is this. Next, it's going to check your condition. Hey, is I less than 5? It's going to say, yeah, it's less than 5. So then it's going to print it. So it's going to print a 0. The last thing to happen is the increment. It's going to increase I to 1. It's going to say, hey, is it less than 5? Yeah, it's less than 5, so it's going to print it. It's going to increase to 2. It's still less than 5, so it'll print the 2. It's going to increase to 3, still less than 5, print the 3. Increase to 4, still less than 5, print the 4. Then it's going to increase to 5. It's not less than 5 now, so it never enters the loop again. And so it's only going to print 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it won't print that 5. If I were to put a, let's see if I can draw this. It might be too small. I think it is. If I were to put an equal sign there, I can't. But if I were to put an equal sign there, it would go one more iteration and print a 5. Okay, let's see if I can erase this. Let's look at the next one. So the next one's an example of how we can increase I or do different things to I. So this one we're multiplying by 2. For this one, I'm going to use a table to work this one out. For more difficult for loops, I suggest using a table if you're having to figure out, what's going on with that loop. So I'm going to start with what happens first. I is a 1. So notice we're not starting at 0. It's going to then check the condition. So I'm going to put I less than 10. And then I'm going to put, the next thing that's going to happen is it's going to, I don't know why it's doing that. It's going to print here. We're writing with this thing. So it's going to print I. The last thing that's going to happen is it's going to multiply I by 2. So I times 2. Okay, so is I less than 10? I'm going to put a little check there to say it is less than 10. We're going to print I, multiply it by 2. Come back here, I'm going to bring the I back over here to the beginning. Is it less than 10? It is. Whoops, that should be a check. It's going to print it, multiply it by 2. So now it's a 4. Bring that back over. Is it less than 10? Yes. Print it, multiply it by 2, which is an 8. Bring that back over, less than 10, yes. print it, multiply it by 2, bring that over one more time, and of course, is it less than 10? I'm going to put an X. No, it's not less than 10, so it never prints. So if we're looking at this column, we can now tell it's going to print 1, 2, 4, and 8. Okay, moving on. See if I can get this to go away. There we go. Okay, here's some other ways that we may see these loops. We can have the user control the input. So here, int I equals a user input. Notice that in the loop, we're still going to put, and this is wrong, I should not be 0 there. Looks like it didn't update. I fixed this, and apparently it didn't update on the site. There we go. Okay, so here, we're simply going to put I. We don't want to put I equals 0 because we want it to be controlled by the user. We don't want to overwrite what the user put. So what it's simply going to do is insert there whatever the user had put in. So if the user puts, a 10, I will start at 10. Okay, it's going to check to see is I greater than 5. So it's possible this loop doesn't run if the user puts in a number that's less than 5. If the user were to put in, let's say, a 10. So let's say the user put in a 10. That means this will start at a 10, and it's going to say, is it I greater than 5? Yes, and then it's going to print a 10. Then notice this is going to subtract. So this is going to go to a 9, then it's going to go to an 8, and it's going to go to a 7, and then it's going to go to a 6. Then I will decrease to 5. It'll run the check. Is it greater than 5? It's going to say no, and then it won't print the 5. So it'll print 10, 9, 8, 7, and 6. This last one, what if we had an accumulator? This is what that would look like. So here we've got a running total. Int num equals 0. And then we're going to add num to total every single time. So, and it's going to run num is less than or equal to 5. So this is going to run 6 times. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, or all the way up to 5, so that's 6. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 6 times. And then it's going to add those to num every single time. So it's going to add 0 to num, which is nothing. It's going to add 1, then it's going to add 2, so that's 3. It's going to add 3, which is going to be 6. It's going to add 4, which is going to be 10. It's going to add 5, which is going to be 15. And then I think that's where it's going to stop, at 15. So this will end up printing 15, I believe. Okay, do keep in mind that these loops have built-in counters. So if this I were to start at 0, just like this, that's a built-in counter that you can use inside of your loop, just like that. So that's why you don't have an example for a counter in a for loop, because we have a built-in counter in that variable I. We used it right there. So, okay, that's for loops in a nutshell for you.